All right, guys. Some would say back like we never left, because in a lot of ways we never really left, Noah. We just hopped off a live stream about 15 minutes ago, published all the pieces and articles that needed to be published on TarHeels247.com, which make sure you guys keep it locked in. Go check that out. You can even do it, scroll on TarHeels247.com while you're listening to us in the background, but it's out now. Hubert Davis and UNC is officially over. His tenure, 5-year tenure, comes to an end. AJ, I'll start with this, and just so people know, we're gonna bring AJ in a little bit later. He's handling some stuff right now and doing some other stuff, but he will be joining us a little bit later on. No, I'm gonna give people about another minute or so to hop on in here, because it looks like I think the stream literally just started a second ago. So we'll hang out here for 1 second before we really dive into the meat of this thing. But yeah, let's just hang out for another minute or two, and then we can get it rolling officially. It's almost like a little bit of a, and you can attest to this now, you do get a little, the heart starts pumping when news like this breaks. You know what I mean? It's like not necessarily because of someone losing their job or anything, but like just the act of trying to get it out there as fast as you can. You know what I mean? And post everything. And yeah.
This adrenaline rush is why I love it. It's just, I don't know how to explain it, but the adrenaline rush of big things happening they're a blast, and it's a lot of fun.
It's real life, man. Yeah, it is. It definitely is. It's just it's one of the things that makes this profession very fun. Again, not the act of anybody losing their job, but just the mad dash at times to get all the news out there and get everything rolling. So, all right, I'm gonna give it another minute or so before we dive in. Let some more people get in here. We got about 50 in here right now. I think that number will certainly pick up here in a few. No, what were your plans for the night? Did you have anything exciting planned before all this stuff broke?
You want me to be honest with you? Wait for this to come out.
Is that kind of where you were at in the whole thing?
And we had a pretty good sense of about whether it was, I mean, not exactly, but we pretty much knew that it was happening pretty soon. So we were ready. Yeah. Just waiting for this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, you just never know. Yeah. It's just one of those things that is, I think we've alluded to quite a lot, really going back to Sunday, probably, man, when me and AJ recorded a couple podcasts. Maybe it was Saturday. I think it was Saturday, actually, is when we started hearing some of the scuttlebutt and kind of stuff going on behind the scenes, and some of the rumors started swirling. Could this be the end? Maybe it's not. Decisions have been made. That was kind of how things transitioned to on Sunday. But I think if you've been following along with us, certainly if you've been on our Tar Heel 24/7 message boards, you can come on and sign up. Links in the description below. You know, AJ's putting updates out every night, and I think it's been pretty evident without him directly saying it, because that's not how we do things over here. We don't, and two, things are fluid. Things can change. There are times where you hear something behind the scenes, as you would know, Noah, as you've been in this business for a little bit now. Like, you hear something behind the scenes and things change a little bit later. And I think ultimately the consistency with what we heard about the whole Hubert Davis and his future at North Carolina remain the same, really going back to, again, on Sunday. So it's pretty fascinating one. And it's one that, again, ultimately kind of came to a head tonight with the news officially breaking. I'll before I ask you kind of your thoughts on it, no, I'm going to give people another minute or so to hop on in here. Only got 65 on here right now. I think some more people will be joining. There's probably about 8,422 live streams going on right now as well. So, people multitasking right now. And as I say, guys, AJ will be hopping in on this a little bit later when he's free. I think he's doing some stuff with CBS right now, so he'll be hopping in here to kind of talk his reactions and some more stuff as well. So we'll have a pretty interesting conversation with how these things ultimately played out today. We'll give it about 30 more seconds, and we'll get rolling on it.
Yeah, I'm curious too how Carolina fans are feeling now that it's official. So curious to see that.
Yeah, get involved in the comments, guys. Like, get involved in the live chat, obviously. Let us know what you think. If you're watching this after the fact, after we record this, get involved in the comments. Let us know your kind of reaction to the news and how everything kind of played out with Hubert Davis and North Carolina ultimately parting ways. Because I think it's a decision we'll talk about in here that probably just kind of had to happen for a number of different reasons, especially with the pressure surrounding the program recently. So No, we can get this thing rolling now. We're about 5 minutes in. We got a few people in here right now. I'm sure some more people will be joining later on in the show. But no, before we dive into maybe looking ahead, I'm sure a lot of the questions will be about who could replace, like what's going on with that. I think that's obviously a very fluid situation too. But I knew there's some names we've kind of heard that you and AJ can talk about, especially when he joins. But what was your instant, immediate reaction to the news breaking? But I guess you'd have to go back a few days to kind of get your instant, immediate reaction to kind of when you heard about things and what they were ultimately going to play out like.
Yeah, it's now when it happened, I was more so expecting this. Like AJ and I have said all along, like this was going to happen. It was never the last couple of days, it was never a matter of if, it was a matter of when. They had already made the decision that this was the way they were going to go. It was a matter of the details and how things ultimately, I guess, came out in a sense, if that makes sense. So I will add real quick, Hubert Davis released a statement on Instagram. He put a statement out. I can read it really quick. Tonight, I was let go by the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. My desire was to continue to coach here. This opportunity has truly been such a blessing. I thank Jesus literally every day for giving me the opportunity, relationships, and experiences with the kids and my staff. I'm very proud of what we were able to accomplish together. My goal is to coach again in the very near future.
So interesting.
He is obviously still looking for a coaching job. I don't know if that's going to be this upcoming offseason, if he wants to wait a year. I know we've seen a lot of coaches that sort of take some time away from the game and then go back. We'll wait to see on that. I think the important part to this is, and we were actually told this a couple of days ago, AJ and I had heard this, that Hubert, the expectation, I guess I want to phrase it the right way. The wait and why these things took so long is because they had details to get sorted out. So they obviously, those took a little bit longer than expected, whether it was a mutual parting ways, whether Hubert was going to retire, whether they were going to have to fire. Some of those things were still being weighed and weren't 100% etched in stone yet. Now, I can tell everyone on here that Hubert was fired. He was fired. I can't go into specifics of what the conversations were, but he ended up in the end, he was fired by Carolina and was let go. So it wasn't like Hubert is going to be retiring. It's not like he's stepping away from Carolina. In the end, Bubba Cunningham and Carolina's athletic department made the move to move on from him. So that, I think, is a really important aspect to this, because I guess that was really what a lot of people were waiting on. That was really what a lot of people were waiting for. And to see how this news came out, was it going to be something where they mutually parted ways? You never know. So in the end, he was fired. And I think that's a really important part of this.
Yeah. And it's, we said it, me and AJ did people know now it's a pre-recorded podcast. Cause again, this is something we'd kind of known was going to happen for a few days now, but again, it doesn't come out until it comes out. Nothing's official until it's official in sports, especially. Again, I've said it before, you just never know how things move in this business. But I think my initial reaction, it's a little bit of sadness, because again, I don't want to see anybody lose their job. Like the amount of people I've come out and seen over the years, man. And I'm going to go ahead and I've mentioned this to people before, but I've had a lot of people throughout the years of Hubert Davis's tenure say that like I've been anti-Hubert or negative on Hubert and everything like that. And I've always responded to people and I've said, look, it has nothing to do with my personal opinion on Hubert. I think Hubert's a great guy. I mean, I've said it so many times this year on the podcast, Noah, like Hubert on paper with his connections to Walter Davis, playing for Dean Smith, playing at North Carolina. He has so many little connections to North Carolina that he's the perfect guy for the job. He was always a perfect guy for the job. But let's rewind it 5 years. I was at his introductory press conference, and I've said this before too. No, Carolina replaced a Hall of Fame head coach who won 3 national titles at the University of North Carolina, who was 32-30 in his final 2 seasons at Carolina, by the way. So the program was not headed in a good direction to begin with. And who did Carolina replace him with? A handpicked guy in Hubert Davis, handpicked by Roy Williams, I should say, guy in Hubert Davis with 0 head coaching experience.
Right.
A guy that didn't really even want the job or expected to even get the job offer in the first place, as we've talked about before. And this is the key. You promote someone like that, 95% of the time they're going to fail. You're hiring a guy to take over one of the biggest programs in the country, a guy with no head coaching experience, to take over the keys to a program that already wasn't headed necessarily in the right direction. Say, here you go, man. Like, good luck. You look at what Hubert did. I've said this many times too. They probably built a statue for him at Boston College. Final 4 appearance, crushing their biggest rivals in his first season, twice ending their biggest rival Coach K's career, number one seed a few years later, ACC regular season title, All-Americans, Caleb Wilson, RJ Davis. Like, in a lot of universities, Hubert Davis would not be on the hot seat, but this university is different. This program is different.
Right.
The standards of this program have not been met for a long time now. So I say all that to say my initial reaction is always a little bit of sadness because I think Hubert's a nice guy. They use the perfect guy for the job on paper. But ultimately, Noah, why was Hubert Davis fired? He wasn't fired because of some scandal. He wasn't fired because of doing something wrong or doing something that breaks the code of conduct or something like that. No, Hubert Davis was fired and the departure was made because he didn't win enough basketball games. Simple as that, plain and simple, man. It has never been anything personal on Hubert. And I think this is the thing, too. I genuinely believe that there has been a lot of vitriol with Hubert this year, 100%. I think that vitriol fades very, very quickly. And I think ultimately Hubert Davis's tenure will be remembered on a very positive note for the things he was able to do. And the things he did against Duke in his first season, those are things that you can absolutely never take away from him. And for a lot of Carolina fans out there, maybe not a lot of Carolina fans, but for some Carolina fans, especially the younger generation of Carolina fans, that is one of the biggest, if not the biggest moment they've ever witnessed in their Carolina fan career so far.
Yeah.
So, like, again, I think there has been a lot of negativity with Hubert this year, more than I ever thought we'd really see, especially over the last few days with how this thing played out and a lot of people wanting him to go. But I don't think that's a thing that'll last because ultimately Hubert's a Carolina guy. He's a guy that understood the assignment here, and ultimately he just did not win enough basketball games. So on paper, in a fairy tale world, Noah, Hubert's the coach for the rest of his life. He wins 5 national championships, rides off into the sunset. Things are rosy and blue. That's not ultimately how it worked out here. So we find ourselves in a position now to kind of sit on here and discuss maybe what's next moving forward. Before we look ahead a little bit, and like I said, AJ will be hopping on a little bit later. I'm not exactly sure what time yet, but he'll be hopping on a little bit later to get his reaction to it. Is there anything you want to add, Noah? And I'll ask you this too. When you heard kind of how things are playing out behind the scenes, and we ultimately kind of learned that, this was the decision that was ultimately going to get made, were you surprised at all based on the product you covered this year, and also understanding how Hubert's not covering it, but also understanding how Hubert's first 4 years went here and the standard that this program has struggled to reach going back really 7 seasons now, arguably?
With the standard, no. I wasn't, because of the way that everything sort of ended, the way that the last couple of years have been. And I've said this before, I don't think the school that's 10 minutes down the road in Durham, I don't think their success necessarily helps anything like that. So I think that the standard is the standard at Carolina. And at the end of the day, they want something that's going to be a product that's going to be a Final Four type of material year in and year out. And that's the standard at Carolina. That's the blue blood nature of it. And that obviously wasn't the case. And obviously the people higher up realized that and thought that they could be in a much better place with a new person in charge. And ultimately that's the decision that they're going to go in. And so, I think the one thing that I didn't necessarily say this explicitly earlier when we first hopped on here, but Hubert was given the chance to resign, to step away, that kind of thing. He didn't. So it left the people in charge with not really any other chance but to fire him. So that is sort of how this thing played out. And that's, like I said earlier, a lot of what we were waiting on. He was given the opportunity to step back, to step away, to retire, to resign, any of those things. And he didn't. And so this is ultimately why I think this took a little bit more time. Because when something like that happens, there's a lot of other things to figure out, a lot of other hurdles that you need to go through. Let's see, some other things that I know a lot of people are asking about Dylan Mingo and commitments and transfers and all of those things. Like, we don't have answers to those. I don't have answers. AJ doesn't. You don't. I imagine there's things that we're going to have to wait and see play out. And I imagine that a lot of whoever the incoming coach is, like, that's something they're going to have to also figure out, because as you know, when a coach leaves, a coach comes in, they want a lot of their own people. They want a lot of their own players sometimes. So we don't know who they're going to hire. And I don't know if you want to jump into a couple of names. I know names is something that people have been asking us for a long time. And the reality is we have been told some names behind the scenes, including, AJ and I, but we just haven't wanted to publicize any of that, because at the end of the day, Hubert Davis was still employed. And so now that's a little bit different. We now have an official word from Carolina. So I don't know if you want to get into that now or wait a little bit, but there are some names that people have mentioned that we have also heard behind the scenes. Again, they don't have somebody, to our knowledge, that's ready to go hired right now. That's not really how this thing played out. I don't believe they have anybody set up and they're ready to make an announcement right now on who they're going to hire. I don't think that's what this is right now. I think that they're still working through that. They're going to go through the process. So I don't know if you want to get into some of the names now or we can wait. It's totally up to you.
Yeah, let's wait a little. Let's wait a few minutes, and I want to bring something up before we dive into that, and we can try to wait depending on how long it takes for AJ to get here and kind of talk about some of that too, because I know again you guys have been very clued in on the stuff playing out behind the scenes and have heard some of those names being tossed around. But this is going to kind of segue us into eventually talking about those names later on in the show. I find this fascinating. I've talked about this before. I put this on our boards. I think I mentioned it in our live stream earlier this week, maybe on Sunday night. But I think this is one of the most fascinating things about where Carolina finds itself at right now. This is essentially, Noah, the first time since 1952 that UNC has to go outside of the family because there's no real obvious hire. There's no real obvious assistant to promote and make I've called it in air quotes, kind of a real hire. And what I mean by that is you look at the history of Carolina. Dean Smith, he was assistant for 3 years, and essentially how the Frank McGuire stuff played out was Dean Smith was kind of just given the job by the AD at the time, ACOG, because McGuire was forced out. Dean, I think he literally took the job a couple days after McGuire ultimately had to step down. So Dean was an assistant, ultimately a Kansas guy, but was the assistant under McGuire for a few years. He ends up getting promoted as an assistant. And there was no coaching search or anything like that had to go into it. Fast forward, Bill Guthridge takes over after Dean retires. Longtime assistant of Dean Smith. Handpicked by Dean, similar to what happened with Hubert, where we're at now with Roy Williams. Matt Doherty. Matt Doherty is the only guy that maybe you could sit here and make a case and kind of try to convince yourself that, there's an argument that he kind of was maybe the closest thing to a real hire for North Carolina. But why was Matt Doherty hired? He was hired because he played at North Carolina. I mean, it's plain and simple. He had one okay season at Notre Dame, where I think they lost in the NIT championship game. If that's just some random Joe Schmo who went to the University of Akron, he doesn't get offered the Carolina job. And Matt Doherty was offered the Carolina job because he was a Carolina guy. You fast forward, Roy takes over after Doherty's fired. Why did Roy take over? Because it was the most obvious hire in the history of sports, arguably. You had a guy in Lawrence, Kansas, as connected as Roy was, former assistant, graduated from the university, tried to get him before he ever took over after Doherty. And then Roy comes in. Roy was a guy that is a Carolina guy, plain and simple. So then what happens when Roy retires, Noah? Hubert Davis takes over. Who handpicked him? Roy Williams. So this is the first time, I don't know how many years in. I need to do the math. Someone in the comments, whatever 2026 minus 1952 is, 70-some years, I think, that North Carolina has had to go out and make a outside of the family hire, essentially, because there is no obvious person that they can pick. And you know what it is too, Noah? Could Carolina, and I'm not saying they're going to do this. I don't think they're going to do this. I think it's a very, 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 let me stress, very unlikely that this is even a thing that was entertained. But there is nobody on the staff really for you to promote. There just isn't. There's nobody that I don't think any Carolina fan watching this, I think there's a few, would really be like, oh man, we promoted this assistant and thank God we did that. That was the best hire we could have made. I've maintained it. I said on the live stream before this, you better hope North Carolina goes out the family, because there is nobody inside the family right now that is an obvious home run hire like there was with Roy Williams years ago. And here's the fact, Noah, this program can't take some risk hire again. You can't just promote some assistant to see how it works because it's handpicked by this guy. No, it's not the same position as Roy was when he left. It's nowhere close with Hubert leaving in the fashion that he did. But you've got to go outside and make the best hire you possibly can. Someone you vetted and someone you think that can get this program back to being elite again. That's number one. That should be the only thing this administration is focused on. It's not about breaking the family ties. It's such a unique thing. It's awesome. It's great. I love it. But at some point, you've got to focus on being good again over just keeping things in the family for the sake of keeping things in the family. And I think we've got to a crossroads point with this decision ultimately being made, that you have no choice but to go out there and find some people. So I'm intrigued to see how that stuff goes down. Again, we're going to hit on a little bit later some of those names maybe being tossed up. We'll let AJ kind of come in here, depending on how long he takes, and also allow some more people to get in here and join the live stream. I think our numbers have almost tripled since we started, so I'm glad some people are finally trickling in here. But no, like it's such a unique thing, man. It's a cool thing to cover because it's, like I said, it's almost unprecedented. when you think about it. Like, you've got to go back so far, 7 years after the end of World War II, to really find yourself in a situation where Carolina's having to go out there and like make a big time hire here. So it's going to be a fascinating thing to cover. It's going to be a fascinating thing to see which direction it ultimately goes in, especially with some of the names being tossed around. But it's kind of unprecedented time. It's kind of a cool situation in a lot of ways. And I think something Carolina fans are excited about ultimately too.
Yeah. And they should be, because a lot of the people that they're going to look at are going to be people that are successful, have proven to be successful, have coached in some really big time games, and have shown that they have the capability to lead a program like Carolina. And we talked about sort of the tradition of Carolina, the nature of the blue blood. And that's why they're going to be able to speak and potentially lure a lot of different coaches from around the country into Chapel Hill that are already in really good spots because of the nature of that logo, that Carolina logo, the nature of everything like that. So I think that the rich history and tradition of Carolina, you can't fabricate that. That's something that's going to that's something that a lot of candidates that they're going to speak to want. And that's something that's what makes this job potentially what top 2 in the country, maybe number 1. I mean, like, it's right up at the top. So they're going to be able to get a lot of coaches that a lot of programs probably thought they'd be able to hang on to forever, because these jobs don't come open very often. You look at Carolina, you look at Duke, and you look at Kansas are the 3 that comes to my mind. I mean, those jobs are hardly ever open. So not only that, but we're in a very rare time right now where one of those 3 jobs is open. And we're also in an even more rare time where not only is one of the jobs open, but one of those schools is going to go now outside the family and go hire somebody else that they believe can take them to the top in year 1. I mean, this is not going to be like a rebuild or something like that where it's going to take a while to get back to the top, because that's not in Carolina's blood. And so they're going to go out and hire a coach that they believe can take them to the top in their first year as head coach. So I think that in and of itself is really exciting. Any Carolina fan right now should be excited because of the uncertainty, because of what Carolina could do. So I think the optimism is absolutely validated. That should be there. And the potential, the possibilities for what Carolina can do right now with this opening can make a big difference, and it is going to dictate history when you look back at it. So we will see, ultimately who they come to terms with, who they end up interviewing. All those kinds of things are going to be really interesting. Without me throwing out any names, I know we're trying to wait as long as we can, so I'm trying to just get around the bush a little bit without mentioning some names. But they're going to be big fish hunting. So they want somebody big that's going to be able to take them to the top.
100%. AJ's again still doing some live spots on some other different stuff. So we'll go ahead and dive into it, man. I mean, what are a few names maybe you want to kind of toss out there that you've heard about, and what are a few of those, and you can kind of divulge.
I'll throw 3 names to start that we have heard sort of behind the scenes some stuff. They've just been names that have been floated to AJ and I that we've talked about the last couple of days. And a lot of people have already mentioned some of them, but the top 3, and this is just at this point opinion, these are the top 3 that I think would make the most sense. They're names that we've heard, but I think these are probably the top 3, in my opinion, that would make the most sense right now for Carolina. Number 1, in no specific order, right? Number 1, Dusty May at Michigan, I think is someone they're for sure going to look at. And I think that is somebody that would make a ton of sense at Carolina. So Dusty May at Michigan is one person that we've sort of heard here and there of someone that would make a lot of sense. The second one is Tommy Lloyd at Arizona, the job he has done, the winning that he has done. I think that's another one that we've sort of talked about a little bit. So Dusty May, Tommy Lloyd, and the third one is Billy Donovan, who I know there were some news today. So those are the 3 to me that make a lot of sense. There's been some other names floated out there. There's some that a lot of people have talked about that we seem to think are less likely than any others. I think the number 1, and this is just a personal opinion from the lens of a Carolina fan, I would think that their best potential hire that they can make would be Dusty May. The job he's done at Michigan this year, the way he's been able to turn that program around in one season, I think that is really, really appealing, right? And you look at age all the time and coaches' ages. I don't know exactly how old Dusty May is, but I believe that he would be a perfect candidate.
I think he's 49. I'll double
in
check.
terms of age, if you're able to get someone like Dusty May at that age, go into Carolina. Now, there's definitely people out there that would like to say, especially Michigan fans, that he's not leaving. Again, we don't know how these things play out. We don't know how he would react to a phone call if he was able to get an offer or get an interview at a place like Carolina. We don't know if he would take it. There's a chance he would turn it down. There's a chance that he would, in an instant, go and interview. We don't know. But Dusty May, Tommy Lloyd, Billy Donovan are a couple of the names that stick out right away. And again, there are a ton of other names that make a lot of sense that could happen. Age range obviously is a little bit different for like a Billy Donovan versus a Dusty May. But at the end of the day, these guys want someone that can really help the program and lead them back to the top as soon as possible.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've said it. You got to go out and make the best hire you can, and you got to go out there and try to get the best coach you think can get you back to an elite level quick. You can't just be a sentiment hire. It can't just be, oh, this guy went to Carolina, so let's give him the job because we don't want to go outside the family. Like, again, I've said it. Carolina's just not in that position right now. It's in a desperate point where it needs to get back to being good again, because 7 years of kind of being in this weird spot where you don't really know where the program's headed and if it's going to get back to the top, despite having some kind of, having some upticks at certain times. The run to the national championship game, Hubert's first year, #1 seed a few years ago. I mean, there have been some really, even this season was positive at times. I think there's a lot of people that were very pleased with the product they saw at times this season, but there were also people this year that were very frustrated at times this season, and rightly so, with how some of Carolina's losses played out, especially the final 3 games of the season. So let's dive into those guys a little bit, man. Let's have a little fun with it. Billy Donovan. First thing that's going to be,
like, real quick, there are some other names that have been floated out, right? It's Vanderbilt's coach, it's Iowa State's coach. Some of those names as well have been floated out. Those are just 3 of the top that seem to make the most sense. I will say a lot of people have been asking us about Todd Golden and Nate Oates. Are some names that have really been thrown out there. Todd Golden being at Florida, Nate Oates being at Alabama. They're definitely possible. I won't say that they're not, but I would like to think that Billy Donovan, Tommy Lloyd, Dusty May, Iowa State, Vanderbilt, those coaches seem to be a little bit more likely at this time than Todd Golden and Nate Oates. I'm not going to jump to any conclusion about any of those. Then I imagine they're going to look at even the Todd Goldens, the Nate Oates, but I think that the Billy Donovan, Tommy Lloyd, Dusty May, it sort of feels like those make a lot of sense for a couple of reasons. Iowa State's coach, and then Vanderbilt. But I just, Todd Golden, Nate Oates are possible, but I don't think that as of right now, what we've heard, I don't know if they're at the top of the list. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's fluid. You can hear names and things can change, so it's going to be a very fluid, situation, obviously, with how this thing ultimately plays out with the hiring process. I think AJ will be in here not too long from now. I think the 247 stream he did just came to an end, so he might be hopping on here sooner rather than later. There he is. Right on cue. Go ahead, Noah. Go ahead, though.
Caleb Wilson, for everyone that's interested.
Yeah, I
Caleb
saw that.
Just tweeted, "Thank you for everything, Coach Davis, one of the best men and coaches in my life." Just to throw that out there.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you kind of expect from. There he is, man. We're back like we never left, AJ. Essentially, that's what I told people.
As one of my buddies would say, back like a bad betting habit.
We were just back.
I had to go over and do CBS, and then I did a stream, and John Henson was unavailable at this moment, so I had to do a solo stream. So I hope I didn't embarrass him.
You were solo
24/7. I was solo, so I did about 12 minutes solo. Kind of rolled through some stuff. I didn't know I was doing solo until I got in there. So John, I'll hopefully catch up with John here pretty soon and do something.
Yeah, you were solo riffing in there, AJ. You're probably getting a bunch of text messages right now. We've been live for about 30 minutes. We're not going to go super long.
God bless Riken Fuller. He just sent me a text that I guess the baseball article's already.
Yeah, there we go.
Right. South Carolina tonight. Let me adjust it. CBS had me put it way down. I think it made my face look a little thinner. So maybe we should do the CBS style moving forward.
That's a new angle for you moving forward. Did the baseball team win tonight?
Man, it is unbelievable how this hit. As we were saying before, we could say more now that it's out there, but he was fired. And you guys know that.
We've talked a little bit about that. Yeah.
I told you guys yesterday. Yeah, I told you guys yesterday that he was fired. They were hoping that it would work out in a way that would be as much kumbaya as possible. but it wasn't. When you saw the reaction by Elijah on social media pulling this stuff, that's kind of the timeline about when I was told when he was fired. He was given the opportunity. I can very quickly, I don't know what you guys have said, but I can very quickly take people like a snapshot from Thursday night to right now. If you guys
go ahead.
You guys want.
We've talked a little bit about it, but we haven't really gone too in depth on kind of behind the scenes of how we've talked a little bit about some names we've been hearing as well. And that was when right before you hopped in, so we can talk about that later too.
Well, it's pretty wild because these things are a rush, and no matter how long I've been doing this, these things are a rush because you want to make sure you get right information. Whenever you get something that you know is rock solid, it's a great feeling. And I've had a lot of great feelings since Thursday night, but also I think one reason there's been so much of it is because it's been kind of obvious.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a whole lot of support being voiced for Hubert outside of Larry Brown. And God bless Larry Brown, who's an incredible Tar Heel, one of the greatest basketball coaches to ever live. If he could go take an 8th grade team right now and win a regional championship and just meet the kids like 10 minutes before they play in the regional championship, he's that good a coach. But he can. He's amazing.
Sure, yeah, I don't think that's an exaggeration, brother.
But there really wasn't much else. And I talked to a lot of people, man. I talked to some former players. I talked to families. I talked to people in the various parts of the athletic department, in the basketball program, in all different areas that you need to talk to in order to get an idea what's going on. It wasn't a one source thing or a two source thing. And it was overwhelming on Friday. And I don't say this with any joy. I'm sad by this for a lot of reasons, and we could go into that a little bit later. But they realized over the last couple of weeks that at the end of year 5, just didn't have what's required to be the head coach at Carolina. Jacob, I thought you said it perfectly last week. If he was the head coach at Boston College, they would put a statue of him right next to the Flutie statue out in front of
100%.
Alumni Stadium, which, by the way, is connected to Conte Forum. You do post-game press conferences in football and basketball in the same room at Boston College, which is pretty wild stuff. It's probably the only cool. The Flutie statue is great, but it would have been if he's at Colorado, he's in Missouri. He almost outside of maybe 6 or 7 jobs, he would still have a job. There'd be no question asked. But this is not one of those jobs, and we have been pretty clear. And definitive is one of Hubert's sayings of late that North Carolina just hasn't been North Carolina. And the passion is there. We've seen some elements of the passion surface that's kind of Kentucky-like. I talked to a person who's been around Carolina basketball for a long time, like right there in the heart of it, about the fact that I've seen some signs of Kentucky fan in the Carolina fan of late, and that's not good. That's only going to surface when things, aren't going well, but when they start losing hope and faith. And that's what's happened with Carolina basketball. The Roy's last 2 teams went 32-20. Hubert's had some really nice flare-ups. He's done some things that he'll have forever. He delivered Carolina fans 2 of the best non-national championship wins they could ever possibly have. It'll 100%. Never be matched. It'll never be surpassed. Those 2 wins will never be surpassed as far as not winning a national championship. And he did that. And he was heavily responsible for that as well, which we've talked about in the last few days. But it's as if they got everything out of him that they could. He had run its course. His peak was maybe the Trimble shot. Maybe it was the second half against Kansas and they just, or the second, or going through the door finally at Kentucky late and Derek Dixon bailing them out and getting them a game that maybe they probably shouldn't have won. Those are things that people started looking at and saying, you know what? You've kind of gotten everything you can. It's like a pitcher gets you into the 8th inning and he's laboring, but he gets that one out. And there's 2 runners on, you got to take them out. But Hubert was left in and the ball was driven to the out and a couple of runs scored, and then he gets taken out. That's kind of like what this was. And the people that I spoke to, a lot of whom love Hubert Davis, admire him. They have tremendous reverence for him, but they knew it was time. And they hoped that he understood and knew it was time. And the sad part of this story, other than the fact that he's no longer the head coach and he's a wonderful person, that anybody who's covered him has nothing but positive things to say about any interaction you have that's not an official media coach capacity. Noah experienced that last week in Greenville, which was, I'm glad you got that moment, to be perfectly honest with you. In this point in your career, I'm glad you had that moment with Hubert because I think that that's important. but it ended up happening this way, and people didn't want it to happen this way. And he just didn't see the same things others did. I think a misread on some of our parts was the post-game press conference was a reality that it wasn't working, but what it was a defiant coach who was kind of going back in the corners and putting up his dukes.
Yeah.
They weren't down. They weren't down. They were up. We all kind of thought they were down. And the powers that be figured that out over the next 72 hours and had no choice but to do what they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was one of those decisions. You talked about that 2 years ago with Larry Fedora, kind of like when his tenure came to an end of when a coach kind of coils up in the corner a little bit, that is a indication that things might, not always, but that's usually a strong indication of where things are probably headed. It might take a long time. But that's always kind of the beginning and the end in a lot of ways. And I don't think that was the beginning of the end moment for Hubert in this situation. I just think it was another moment in how this ultimately kind of played out here. So yeah, it's a wild situation, but I think ultimately one I tweeted out, it's ultimately one that had to happen. I think it just got to a point, and me and Noah have talked about it a little bit. It's just a decision that needed to happen. AJ, I want to, Noah's thrown out a few names that I know you guys have heard behind the scenes. Noah, if you want to go ahead and kind of rehash a few of those. And again, I prefaced this earlier, fluid situation, things change, things move, but I know some conversations you guys have had, and AJ, some conversations especially you've had, there's some names that have been tossed out. So no, I'll let you take the reins on that.
Yeah, I'll just say all we did was just hear names in passing, right? There's not like, we haven't been past set lists like, okay, here's who they're reaching out to. Here's who they want to interview. It's just, again, it's just names, like I said earlier, just names that have been floated around, and a lot of fans have even talked about a lot of these names, but just a couple of ones that I mentioned earlier, AJ, and you can piggyback off these or add some. Billy Donovan, Tommy Lloyd, Dusty May were three that made a lot of sense in terms of us just thinking about who would be a good fit at Carolina. And to us, I think we came to the conclusion that those three made a lot of sense for various reasons at Carolina. But I'll let you sort of take over from there.
Yeah, I think also it's not a shameless plug because we're offered 75% off. You go to TarHeal247.com. We're going to also have a ton of this stuff in there as we continue to vet some of this information. So we only have some now. We'll get more as the days go on. I actually know a couple of names that will not be targets. In fact, I said a joke today in the press box because, by the way, we spent all day doing football over in Chapel Hill today. Imagine that. And Noah, what was the joke I said? I said, I would have to say no before these guys say no.
That's right.
Yeah. And one of them is not coaching now. One of them is still coaching in the tournament. I'm not going to say their names right now. I don't think that that's fair right now to say their names, but there are a couple of names that are thrown out there a lot that are not candidates for this job. 100% I could tell you that are not candidates for the job. The three that you mentioned, some of the donors, the money people really like Billy Donovan. And the reason Donovan is intriguing is because he's a damn good coach, number one. He had a tremendous amount of success earlier in his career, 11 years in the NBA, so the players will be able to identify with him. He's coached a lot of great players. The NBA success hasn't been there as much lately with the Bulls, and the Bulls are tanking now. But NBA is kind of weird that way. You're not judged the exact same way as you are in college because there's more really good programs in college than there are really good teams in the NBA. So the other thing too is that one of the realities that hit people a lot in the last few weeks about this job, and I'm going to use the word chops because that's what it was said, is you got to have someone who's got the chops for it, man. Because it is a pressure cooker. It is a higher platform than I think a lot of people realize because the men that have had it and been so incredibly successful, it was who they were. It was natural. Dean was a natural for the role. He kind of created a lot of this stuff. And then Roy, in some respects, took it to another level and was a natural for it. Hubert was not. He was never great with the media. There were times when we saw aspects of what we saw the last couple of weeks throughout the 5 years. The Alabama game in the Sweet 16, Patrick Wojcik was on the court for 9.5 minutes. A lot of people wonder why that happened, and Hubert had no answer for it. So those are little things too. You've got to have a coach who can sit in that seat, who can take the arrows, and who can answer the questions. Because as I've said for a long time, and I try to tell this to either media relations people who are the gatekeeper for a legendary NFL coach who's won a ton of Super Bowls, that it's not for us. It's for you. It's for the people who consume our content. We are liaisons to the fan. It's our job to write about and talk about how they perform and what they say about it. And they got to talk about it. They have to be held accountable for how their teams perform. When you win, I love Seth. He's the greatest. I'm so glad he's the one that hit that shot. He deserved it. But when the shot doesn't go in, you have to go the same distance. And that was one of the problems that Hubert didn't do. Someone like a Billy Donovan will do that. He'll sit in that chair. He'll take the shots, and he won't be overwhelmed by it. That's going to be an important component. Now, I'm not saying he's the guy. I'm just telling you what was told about him. As far as Lloyd and May and some of the other ones, they're highly, highly intriguing. I'll throw this nugget out about Tommy Lloyd. Roy Williams is probably best friend in coaching, absolutely best friend in coaching, is Mark Few. And he's got some pretty damn good stories to tell about Mark Few and going to riverboat gambling and stuff. But anyway, Tommy Lloyd was an assistant. Tommy Lloyd was an assistant under Mark Few for 20 years. He takes the Arizona job, which was kind of struggling some, and boom, national power. You could say he fixed Caleb Love. He also was the one who gave Henry Vessar the nickname Hank. So we see Hank's the physical guy. Henry's the totally finesse guy. And Henry talked a couple of times this year about when to be Hank and so forth. So he's an outstanding coach who has seen a lot and knows who he is now. So they're going to get a really good coach. They're going to upgrade. There's no doubt about it. The key is, can they get someone who can handle it? And not handle it just the week that they play Duke, not handle it for when they go to the Maui Invitational or the NCAA tournament. You got to handle it in April and May and June and July and August and September and October as well. It's a 365 job. Arguably, it's the biggest job, best job in college basketball. You can make that clear argument, and they're going to be moving into a new arena. So they're going to take all that amazing, iconic history into a new building. And whoever they hire is probably going to be the head coach when they open up that new building. That's a lot of pressure. So you got to make sure you get someone who's got the chops to handle all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, go ahead, Noah. If you want to butt in real quick, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, AJ, check your text really quick. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that—
I'm going to put my glasses on.
And I said this a little bit earlier, like the nature in which the Carolina program is at, just the history of it, all those kinds of things. That's why they're able to go after some of these coaches. So I know a lot of people are seeing the name like, oh, Tommy Lloyd, for example, right? And they're saying, oh, there's no way he's going to go to Carolina. You'd be surprised with how much that name sort of carries. And now I'm not saying necessarily that that's going to be the hire or that they're for sure going to interview him or anything like that. But I think it's interesting to think about the fact that they are able to talk to another coach, probably will be able to talk to other coaches around the country that are in phenomenal spots that would still hear that name North Carolina and immediately be interested and want to talk. Oh, yeah. Right. And I think that is the beauty of all of this, the fact that is just possible, right? And the fact that that's why Carolina's going to be able to go out there and make a big splash and be able to be out there and give fans a lot of hope and optimism for year one. This isn't like I said earlier, it won't be a multi-year thing. Like they are going to have championship expectations as they have in the past. That's going to be no different. They're going to have that as soon as this next coach comes in. But he'll also have a lot of resources around him to be able to get to that point. Right? Like Roy Williams, I imagine, might be one of the first people that shakes this new coach's hand and welcome to Carolina, and it's going to be a resource for him. So you're going to be able to get some of these coaches to come here and then also have the resources around him to allow them to build a championship level program and team.
Yeah. One more thing to comment on what you just said. They're going to find out very quickly people that can't handle it. They're going to read the body language, read the tone. And the bottom line is it's not for everybody. And a lot of people don't know it's not for them.
Yeah.
So it'll be very, very interesting to see who has the confidence that they could do this. It's not moving up. It's not moving from JMU to Vanderbilt. You know what I mean?
No, man.
It's different. Jump. So I think that a lot of people will be qualified just by the fact that they might not have 100 coaches apply for the job. it's kind of like, well, I don't want to say that. It would probably not go over too well. It wouldn't be politically correct, but some people don't get asked out very often, but the ones that do usually are by very confident people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
100%.
it's that kind of deal. So I would imagine that if the head coach at Middle Tennessee State isn't cramming with his wife to get his resume printed out right now and overnighted to Chapel Hill. So it's going to be a limited pool that really believes they can handle it. Especially, and the other thing too is they're going to have to answer a lot of questions. Imagine this, man, if they do Hubert, one of their own like that, what are they going to do to me? I'm not even one of them. So I think that they may have a fairly small pool of candidates in the end, but it'll be okay because those are people that will be able to check the boxes themselves, and Carolina can check the boxes with them as being the right people for this kind of job.
100%. I was going to bring that up too. I think that's going to be one of the most fascinating things, and we'll talk about this more when a hire is ultimately made. But where Carolina's at now, the pressure from the fan base wanting to get back to being elite again and bringing in more than likely a guy from outside the family. I think it's going to be a fascinating thing to cover because I think the leash is going to be even shorter than it was with Hubert Davis in a lot of ways, but also how Hubert's tenure kind of played out. Hubert almost bought himself some time, I think, too, because of what he was able to do in his first year. Like,
Jacob, I'm going to disagree with that for a second, just because I don't think it was a leash situation. I think people knew, but they needed a final tidal wave to come in and just knock everything around.
You're talking about when Hubert ultimately got fired.
Yeah. I think people knew that ultimately, like, his high end, as you've said, his greatest moment was his first year.
Yeah, it already happened.
Maybe he really couldn't get back to that. And so I think people knew so the leash is different. The next guy will maybe have a leash. I'm not so sure there was much of a leash with Hubert. It was more people knew they were just waiting for the right opportunity, hope that he would figure it out. And the opportunity, that moment wouldn't come, that tidal wave wouldn't hit, but the tidal wave hit, and it gave them the door open to go ahead and do this.
Yeah, but when you agree, AJ, too, that what he was able to do in his first year probably
100%.
I don't know if bought him some took a little bit of pressure off of, because if we remember, that team was not very good. If that team is just an 8 seed and loses in the first or second round, like, I don't even know if it'd be very fascinating to see how things played out. But the frustration and the pressure that ultimately kind of built up with the VCU loss, with everybody kind of being like, yeah, we need to move on from this. I wouldn't be surprised if that timeline was moved up if things played out the same after that with his other seasons. Because again, like you said, a lot of places Hubert Davis did a fantastic job. It's just at the standard of this program, where the program's been at for the last 7 or 8 years. It's like, a good job is not really good enough here. It needs to be a great job, and Carolina needs to get back to being elite again, competing for titles, being more relevant, not losing in the first round of NCAA tournaments, winning ACC tournament championships, winning more ACC regular season titles. Like, Hubert did some nice things, but ultimately he didn't win enough basketball games, man, and that's what it comes down to. And the barometer of what enough basketball games it is at North Carolina is a heck of a lot different to even like Noah, where you're like at Ohio State. Like, there's different levels to it, and North Carolina is one of those programs that, the standard's so high that you've really got to excel and do well. Or the pressure piles up, man. Because, there's a lot of people. I talked to my dad about this a lot, man. It's like, it's kind of, we joke about it, but like in a lot of ways, if North Carolina doesn't win a national championship or compete for one or be legit, like it's a failure of a season in a lot of ways. It's not really that black and white, but that's how a lot of different people look at it because of what this program is. Like I said, Noah, you'll understand this is your first time walking the Smith Center months and months ago. Like, you just walk in the Smith Center and look up and you're like, oh yeah, I kind of get it now. Like, it's different in here, man. Like, the standard's a lot different with some of the names and the banners that are hanging up there, especially the national title banner. So it's a different animal here. And it's just one of those situations that I think ultimately had to play out like it did. And it's where we're at now.
By the way, real quickly, just so you guys wondering what the hell I'm doing, I'm actually uploading a piece. I'm putting a piece in admin and uploading about the coaching candidates. By the way, I was with Noah when he walked in there and saw it for the first time. And it's a fascinating thing simply because there aren't many places like it, but it's not just what it is. It's a program that just fired a love guy who won 69.8% of his games. And they had just cause to do it. So that just tells you right there, it's a different animal. It ain't like most other places. And that's okay. And that's okay because I think that that's healthy, that North Carolina understands what it is and who it is right now and what it needs to get back to being. And if they didn't think that it was going to happen under Hubert Davis, then they must make a change, because in the end, it's not about feelings. It's about winning. It's about success. And that's what this thing was built on. Dean was great with the feelings. Roy was great with the feelings. Hubert, great with the feelings. But two of those guys won a ton. One of them didn't. And a change had to be made. So that's why we're sitting here having this conversation. And I think it's a justified move that the school made.
100%. I think so too. We'll go about 10 more minutes in here. It's been about 50. We've already live streamed for an hour earlier. We have a podcast we put out, pre-recorded obviously because it got out so quickly, on Hubert Davis's, on how it kind of played out and some other stuff. So you can go see that reaction podcast. So we say, it was Noah's idea, give him shit points to the passer, or AJ's, maybe both of y'all's, but let's hop on another live stream and do it. So that's what we're doing here right now for another 10 minutes or so. If there's any questions people want to get in, feel free. Get your questions. I've been I think you have been too. I've been refreshing Twitter to see if anybody else is tweeting about it, if any players are coming out with any stuff. I haven't seen anything recently since
I haven't had time.
Tweet. Yeah. I'm trying to
I'm literally copying and pasting right now. I can only imagine what that looks like on camera.
It's shaking. It's like
really,
you're in an earthquake.
And it's really hard to copy and paste at this weird angle with the microphone right there. But I'm making it work.
You're multitasking.
I'm talented, man. That's what it is.
AJ, did you see the we read it earlier, and Noah, I might let you read it again. But Noah, did you see? AJ, did you see Hubert's statement he put out on Instagram? Have you seen that yet?
No, I have not.
Noah, do you have that pulled up?
I'll read it again. I was just going to do that. I'm going to read some other statements too that we got in our from the university as well. I can read it for people that haven't necessarily seen it, but I'll start. Hubert Davis released a statement on Instagram. He said, "Tonight I was let go by the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. My desire was to continue to coach here. This opportunity has truly been such a blessing. I thank Jesus literally every day for giving me the opportunity, relationships, and experiences with the kids and my staff. I'm very proud of what we're able to accomplish together." And the last sentence in the statement was, "My goal is to continue coaching again in the very near future." Or my goal is to coach again in the very near future.
Which is interesting.
Is it really?
Yeah, I was surprised.
Okay, that's
okay. Here we go.
Very surprising.
We get raw reaction from AJ hearing.
Yeah, literally.
Wow. Because look, I'm going to go back. Jeff Goodman got a lot of attention for what he said the other day, and Noah, Jacob, this for a fact. I told you before Roy stepped down that when people would talk about how long is he going to go, do you think the replacement's going to be, and Hubert's name would come up, and I would say, look, people around Hubert have always told me he's not interested in being a head coach.
100%.
So it was surprising at the minimum when he actually became the head coach, but it was highly intriguing too. I understand what Roy saw, and let's not forget he also played for Pat Riley. I mean, he sat on a bus talking to Pat Riley about stuff. That's some high-end stuff right there. So I kind of figured this would be his only job. This was his only love. It was an act of service. That's what he said for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And he lathered up every element of all things Chapel Hill and UNC about it's where he became a Christian. It's where he met his wife. It's where he built his first house or bought his first house. We found out a couple of weeks ago he's got an old payphone in his house too, so he didn't build it. No, we would put a payphone in a new house now, a relatively new house. But it just seemed like he's a lifer for Chapel Hill. He did his service time to get out and be long loved for building a bridge to the next part of Carolina's future. I'm very surprised he said he wants to coach again. It will be very fascinating to find out who might be interested in his services.
Yeah. I think there'll be some interested.
Yeah, that's a surprise. That was definitely.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. That was the biggest thing that kind of stood out. I mean, there's some interesting language in there with him being like, "I wanted to continue, but that wasn't a mutual kind of thing." Essentially, I'm paraphrasing. It's not really what he said, but no, you said there was a couple other things you saw statement wise you wanted to read out.
Yeah, I'll read it for the press release that we got from Carolina directly to us, just because I don't think this was necessarily put out anywhere, but I think it's worthwhile to read out. The most important things were the recommendation to ultimately move on from him was made by Director of Athletics Bubba Cunningham, Executive Associate Athletic Director Steve Newmark, who's going to be transitioning to the Athletic Director on July 1st. And that move was ultimately accepted by Chancellor Lee Roberts earlier today. The quote statement from Bubba Cunningham says, "We appreciate all that Hubert has done for Carolina as a player, assistant coach, head coach, and community leader. He's helped make special memories we will never forget. This was not an easy decision because of Hubert's tremendous character and all he has given to the program, but we must move forward in a way that allows our team to compete more consistently at an elite level." That's the statement from Bubba Cunningham. From Steve Newmark, he added, quote, "Hubert cares deeply for our university, and it's been inspiring to watch him instill that love and Tar Heel tradition into the players he has coached. Chancellor Roberts, Bubba, and I join all of the Carolina community in thanking Hubert and his family for all they have done at UNC, for UNC. The other thing that was noted in here is UNC will honor the terms of Davis's contract. AJ has a piece on that on Tar Heel 24/7, the details of his contract, what that all looks like, to put that into perspective. Just to round out this statement, this email that we got, a national search is underway for the Tar Heels' next head coach. Cunningham and Newmark are leading the search, and Carolina has hired executive search firm Turnkey ZRG to assist. Cunningham and Newmark also will consult with an advisory group comprised of key stakeholders, including former players, former coaches, and supporters of UNC athletics. So that was pretty much the entirety of what we got to make the, I guess, move official.
By the way, someone just said 500 fans on this is pathetic. We had 1,000 when the news came out, and we had to drop off. So
yeah.
And I just did a stream for 24/7, and I did the CBS thing as well. So with all this activity going on right there, I didn't even know the number was 500 until he said that, and it's 568 or something.
There's about
we were at
1,000.
Yeah, we were at about 1,000 when that thing hit, and so I was
There
thinking
was about
tomorrow morning.
There's about 6,000 live streams going on right now.
100%, yeah, 100%. That's fine, and this will be there for people to watch for however long.
Yeah, you can
I don't know how much longer we're going to go
too.
with it. We've got a lot more stuff we're rolling out. This has been wild stuff, man. This has been a grind. It's been an absolute grind. I was just before I came in here to do our live stream 8 o'clock, I was just sitting in the other room for like 20 minutes with my wife saying, okay, I'm going to set my alarm clock for 9 minutes from now in case I doze off. And the alarm went off, but I never dozed off. So that's just kind of the way things are. And there's a lot more. I mean, now we're going to be on a coaching search.
Yeah, it's fluid,
searches are. I will warn people. There will be a lot of misinformation out there. It's going to be very difficult if you get frustrated that maybe we're not saying things just because we have an absolute drop dead policy about how thorough we have to be with vetting stuff. We've never had to run a retraction before, never will. So that will be challenged here in the next however long it's going to be. I have a feeling, I have a belief that there's a really good chance that this won't take that long.
Yeah.
So I'm texting with some people right now. I've got some very, very good friends and people in the business who know a thing or two about a thing or two. And they're texting me some pretty interesting stuff tonight. I can't put anything out there because I have to vet it myself before I would ever do something like that. So, but I would say that the wheels may already be in motion.
And that's how it should be. That's how an organization like North Carolina should be moving. It should be quick. It should be swift, and it should be going out there and getting the guy that you ultimately want and kind of having your pick of the litter in that respect too. You never know who might turn you down, but this is North Carolina, man. I think a lot of people would absolutely bite your hand off to be offered this job. So
someone says it's a sad day, and I agree with them. I think I mentioned this earlier. It's a very sad day. Nobody wanted to see it end like this. I was really hoping when I knew it was going down, like on Friday, I was really hoping he would just say, okay, Carolina basketball is much bigger than me. I love it so much. I've had a great run. I can walk off, get my $5 million parachute and walk off, and everything's going to be great moving forward. But it didn't work out that way. I feel bad for Hubert. I don't feel bad for him in the sense that he was handed perhaps the biggest, perhaps the best job in all of college basketball in a silver platter. Just handed to him. I don't feel that's a wonderful thing, and he took advantage of it. We would all take something if it's handed to us like that, right? And I don't feel bad for him that he's financially secure and all those kind of things. Those aren't the things I'm talking about. So if I say I feel bad for somebody, don't go there with that kind of stuff. The man is genuine. He's legit genuine. Some of the corny things that he says are 100% who he is. I was behind him at the exhibition game at Memphis a year and a half ago, and he literally yelled at the referees, "What the fudge are you doing?" I mean, it's 100% who he is. And I think that people need to appreciate that, because we are in a society now where people are afraid to be who they are, in part because they're castigated upon all kinds of negative things. And for a guy with his beliefs and that he wears pretty strongly, I applaud him for being who he was or who he is. And he'll still be that guy moving forward. And that will get him through a lot of this, like he said in his statement. But it's a sad day, because I saw Hubert play in high school. He's from Northern Virginia, where I'm from. My dad refereed some of his high school games. I saw him play. My dad called a foul on him. I told Hubert that, and Hubert's like, "I bet you it was a bad call." And we talked about that in the team hotel in Charlotte a year and a half ago, the day before they played Florida, and he was great. Or that was that team. That was that was his fourth team. Noah got to see firsthand that there's a genuine comfort with Hubert Davis, always comfortable. He wasn't comfortable in press conferences. We would sit there and try to, Noah would say, I got to find a way to ask him a question so he'll actually give me some kind of response. It got to the point where before November in post-game pressers, Noah was almost, okay, if I say it this way, do you think he'll respond? If I say it that way? And I'm the same way. I've been doing this crap for 30 years, and I'm the same way with him, because you never knew how he was going to react, and he usually didn't say a whole lot. But 10 minutes later, if you were to see him in the hallway, fully comfort, free-flowing conversation and all that. That's the man that a lot of people who are highly disappointed right now, that's the man they know. That's the man they deal with on a regular basis. The public doesn't see that very often, and I think that's unfortunate. I think there were messaging issues during his 5 years, and one of the things is he didn't let people, because guard went up. He should have pulled it down. He should have been more himself and not question the questions so often. And one of the things that bothered me the most about Hubert press conferences, we would go talk to the players at home, and then we talk to him, and a player would say, this, and this is what the issue was, or whatever. And we would ask him a question. Here's what such and such said. Well, I wasn't there, so it would be wrong for me to comment on something that I don't know if they said. Well, we're not making it up. We joked the other day if, let's say Hubert were to stay, we'll just like splice it and play what the player said right there in the press conference. Those are things that he should have been better at. And if he would have been better at, I think a lot of people would have had even stronger warmies for him, to be perfectly honest with you. Because if you knew the guy away from that, that was it. I mean, I think back to last Wednesday, and I'm so grateful that Noah had a chance to experience that. That's a good dude. That's a good human being, man. But his job's to win basketball games. His job is not meltdown. His job is not to freeze in the biggest game of the year on the biggest stage with the largest TV audience watching a first-round NCAA tournament game ever. His job is to not do those things, and that's why he is not the head coach right now.
Yeah. No, do you want to add anything you want to add? I know you mentioned you covered it a few times, and we'll head out after that, but anything you want to kind of add on based on what AJ said?
I think that was a really good way to end it. There's obviously two sides to everything in sports, right? There's a good side, there's a bad side for most things. And, coach firings and stuff like that, there's obviously a lot of excitement on one hand because a lot of fans are looking forward to what's next, but there's obviously still a big portion of the fan base that's probably pretty bummed out for Hubert. And yeah, I would just agree with everything that AJ said, and getting to know him. I've only known him for what at this point, like
6 months.
Yeah,
not 8 months, 7 months. Yeah.
First time I ever met him was at ACC tip-off. So I haven't known him for that long, but in the interactions I did have with him and away from press conference settings, which he obviously wasn't the most comfortable in always, he's a great dude. Like, he cares about people. He's a people person in that sense. He really cares about people's personal lives, all those kinds of things I know from stories and from personal experience of just chatting with him. So you feel bad for the guy, right? You feel bad that it didn't go down necessarily the way that some people wanted it to. The fact that they ended up ultimately having to fire him. I know they didn't necessarily want to have to do that if they didn't have to. But this is ultimately the way it went down. And regardless, Hubert's going to be remembered in a positive way. It's never going to be one of those things where you look back 20 years down the road and you think bad things about Hubert when his name gets brought up. It's going to be positive things he did. And you're not going to think about the losses that he had. You're going to think about the win in his first year against Coach K in the game at Cameron and the game in the Final Four, those kinds of things. And you're going to think about everything he did as a player, his relationship with Roy, and just his commitment to the university. So I think that's a good way to leave it.
100%.
Yeah, let me ask you guys this one final trivia question, which neither one of you will know. Jacob might know. Noah won't know because I don't think I've told Noah about this. But do you guys know when the first time it was I actually interviewed Hubert Davis?
Oh, hold on. I feel like you have told me.
Jacob, I think you know. I may have even told the story at one point on a podcast, but we do so many.
Was in the NBA? Was it when he was in the NBA?
Yep. Think about where I was.
Was it something to do with?
Think about where I was in my career while he was in the NBA and how our paths could have crossed.
Because he played with Jordan for the Wizards.
It was the same day. It was the same day that was the first time I ever asked Michael Jordan a question. Ever interviewed Michael Jordan.
That's what it was. Yeah, I remember you telling me that. I vaguely remember the story.
Because when MJ was with the Wizards, they trained in Trask Coliseum in Wilmington.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was.
Their training camp. So I got Hubert on a whole one-on-one I did for like 10 or 12 minutes, and he was awesome. Sometimes I used to sit there and think, where is that guy? He was just a player. He was trying to make a roster. And of course he made the roster. But I sometimes wondered, you get so guarded. You're not that guy. There was no reason to be guarded at that time. It was a training camp interview with some schmuck from Wilmington, some newbie who didn't know what the hell he was doing. He had typo problems out the wazoo back then, far more than I have now. So, but it was a great interview. I remember it very clearly. I can go back to Trask Coliseum and probably show you where I was standing because a lot of people were waiting for MJ because the scrum for MJ was going to happen like at any time. So I was going to have to break free from Hubert and run over to MJ, which I didn't do because MJ was fashionably late. And Hubert, I got about 10 or 12 minutes. And I don't know if I mentioned the Lake Braddock thing, but, Mia Hamm, Lake Braddock has been great to North Carolina. Mia Hamm went to Lake Braddock. And, of course, Hubert Davis went to Lake Braddock High School. Billy Edwards, the current quarterback at North Carolina, was at Lake Braddock. One of my former teammates was one of his coaches at Lake Braddock. There's a lot of connections there. I was not a Lake Braddock guy. We beat Lake Braddock at their homecoming, which I've reminded Hubert about 7 or 8 times.
I was like, yeah, we get it, AJ. We get it. Yeah, we get it.
I know. I had to go there. I had to go there for fun.
It's only fair.
But anyway, that was the first time I ever talked to him. And then I went, 20 years? No, about 18 years before I talked to him again.
It's fascinating how it plays out like that. Yeah, you are right. I'll end it with this. One of the things I've told these people before, but I remember when Hubert was on ESPN, and I thought he was fantastic on game day and everything. And I thought his personality was just so great. And one of the things that I wish we would have seen more, because you talk about, you get guarded, criticism comes in flying from all different directions when you're the coach. It's human nature for you to kind of get guarded and maybe to hide some of that. And also when you're the leader of a North Carolina basketball program, it's a lot different than you being on ESPN and trying to entertain people. But I really wish we could have and we saw it at times, Hubert Davis's personality shine through more, because again, I just always go back to watching him growing up on game day when I was in like high school and stuff like that. And he was just so good. He was so funny. He was so, I think he exuded this type of personality that I feel like we saw shine through at times, but we didn't see it as much as we could have. And I think that just surmises the pressure that comes with being the coach at North Carolina, man. So yeah, that's what I kind of want to on. But sad.
One more thing very fast.
Fired, as I said.
A lot of people are questioning about, does this mean they're going outside the family? Yes. That connection's gone, but I think it's fine. A lot of people say it's time. And again, like I said earlier, I don't know what podcast it was on tonight because I've been on 1,000. But whoever they bring in could become a Carolina guy. He could become a member of the family. It's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. 100%. You're 100% right. And I think that's a good place to leave this one, guys. Another hour or so live stream. We appreciate everybody that hopped in. Wow. Appreciate everybody that comes back and watches this after the fact, after this one goes out. Get involved in the comments. If you are watching this after the fact, I said it earlier, we want to hear from everybody. I want to hear your reactions, what you think about this happening. Are you glad it happened? Sad to
Someone's commenting about the Wi-Fi.
Are they really? What do they say?
Let me pull my glasses out again.
Yeah, my like live chat is like frozen.
He said Hubert didn't believe in Wi-Fi. Maybe the next coach will put free Wi-Fi in the Dean Smith Center. Better Wi-Fi. My goodness gracious. You know what? Maybe Jerry McNamara will mandate good Wi-Fi in the JMA Wireless Dome up in Syracuse so people don't have to hear me complaining, bitching up a storm every time I go up there to cover a game.
His first order of business in his introductory press conference is we are getting good wireless in this wireless dome. I hope that is. I hope
and while we're at it, Jim Phillips needs to get us good Wi-Fi for the ACC tournament too.
Yeah, come on, man. Step the Wi-Fi up. It's 2026.
All this, I'm just glad that Billy Edwards got a mention in this podcast, so I'm good.
Yes, that's exactly. Well, as Rod Baxley would say, I'm Billy Edwards and I'm a Tar Heel.
Yeah, 100%.
That's an inside joke that if Rod will not get this far with this podcast, there's no
chance. I hope he doesn't.
I hope he doesn't.
I hope to God it. Yeah,
I will think less of him if he does. I
hope to God he's not watching us right now. Jesus, hope he's doing something else with his life than watching us. But all right, we'll go ahead and get out of here. Big thank you to everybody that hopped in.
Thank you guys.
Second live stream of the night. Yeah, it's been an absolutely fun one, and we appreciate everybody that's joined.
This is my third live stream of the night.
Yeah,
and a live HCBS thing.
Yeah, you got about 1,000 other things to do too. So we're gonna go ahead and get the heck out of here. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Noah Weiskopf on the far right, and in the middle, he's been Andrew Jones.
There you go.
I appreciate it, guys.
I had to head down for a while. I'm used to you just going right to me.
Full transparency. My StreamYard live chat is frozen over here, so I'm gonna attempt to end this live stream right now, and we'll see if it actually works. But big thank you to everybody. You want me to end it? Yeah, you go ahead and do it because mine's frozen. I'll go ahead and let you do the honors. See you guys.
Appreciate everybody's support, man. Big time.
Thanks, guys.